Welcome to the podcast for real-life heroines. Let's embark on a journey that unveils the extraordinary stories of everyday women who redefine what it means to be a heroine or hero. Life is a tapestry of inspiration and magic, and today's episode is no exception. Here's your host, Susanna Liller.
Hello, welcome to the podcast for real life heroines, where I get to interview very interesting women who have had quite the heroine's journeys, as has my guest today, Kat Gale Taylor. Welcome, Kat.
Thank you so much, Susanna. I'm very happy to be here.
Very happy to have you here, and so excited to get into your story. And as I was just saying to you before we began, there are really two stories that I want to explore with you. The first being your history with ADHD, which we'll explain and go into. And then the second about your being an animal communicator. And I'm going to ask you to tell your story about the pig, which is a remarkable story. And so, but I'd like to start with your history first, because you've been on many heroines' journeys. You're quite the explorer, have been, still are. And I don't think you mind me telling people that you're in your 70s.
I'm 77 years old.
There you go. And I'm 73. So it's great to know that you are continuing to stretch and grow and explore, and here we are in our 70s. So bravo to the two of us.
That's right.
So let me read your brief bio that actually is on your website, and I will encourage people to go there, and we'll say what it is at the end and put it in the show notes. You graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Maine College of Art in Portland, Maine, in 1982 with a printmaking major. And you have worked for several years as a darkroom tech for Down East magazine. You ran a home cleaning business, worked as a licensed massage therapist, and after retiring from a 16-year career as a physical therapist assistant, you now spend time doing what you love, which is drawing, and spending time with your wonderful son, daughter-in-law, and two grandsons. And I know also there was you became an RN. You took the course to become an RN.
I did. It was only a 2-year program, and it turned out not to be a match for my personality. It didn't work for me. I tried it. It's like,
yeah, no. But, each of those really, you're stepping out of your comfort zone and trying something.
I did.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. And eventually settling in on, I'm an artist, and this is what I love to do the most. And okay, well, we're going to talk about that. And so we're going to talk about your beginnings. But because we're going to talk about ADHD, can you just, in layman's terms, so how would you what is that for people that might?
Those are the only terms I know anyway,
Okay.
really.
Okay.
So it was about 12 years ago when I was around 65 that my therapist, we were talking, she went, wait a minute, tell me about this and tell me about that. And she asked me if I would fill out a form to see if I looked like an ADHD person. She said, yep, that's you. She also is one. So she's been very helpful. So it's hard for me to describe it because I've always been this way, but one way I describe it, I think I talked to you about this before. I'll be going to the grocery store. I have my list.
Yeah.
I want to get a certain kind of nut butter. And I've got it here before. I'm looking and looking and looking. And sometimes I actually have to put my hand on the different jars to get my attention there and go, oh, it's right here in front of me. That's what it is. Sometimes I don't find it. And I'll have to ask somebody in the store and they'll show me. It's like, well, it was right in front of me. I had a blind spot. And so I've got these blind spots to things, and that's something I've had to deal with, of course, all of my life. Once I got that diagnosis, my growing up and going to school made total sense
And
because
when
I had
that was 10 years ago?
about
Oh,
about 12 years ago.
yeah. And that
Yeah.
was an art therapist, I think you went to.
No,
Oh, no,
just a
a regular.
regular psychotherapist.
Okay.
Right. Right.
So, so back to you were little, nobody knew that you had this. Your father was a doctor, I think also an artist. Your mom was an RN, and you're
Right.
not doing very well in school.
Everybody thought I was stupid. So I knew that I wasn't that stupid because I could see, okay, I'm in this class with all these other kids that have all these problems, and I can see all the smart kids are in the other higher classes. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I struggled and I struggled. I remember when I was in high school, I would study my brains out at night until 10 o'clock when I was exhausted, like for a history exam. And I couldn't get it. I would read a paragraph of something like history, and it would actually make me have to take a nap. I would have to go lie down and I would go to sleep for a few minutes and I would come back to it and try again.
That's
Ugh,
remarkable, really. And so I'm sure a scientist or somebody could explain what the brain is trying to do, but the brain was
right.
probably working so hard to focus
Yes,
against
yes.
the not your natural inclination not to focus.
And I'm finding that happening in my life now recently, earlier in December. I'm doing surface pattern design and I'm at the point where I'm creating um, a digital portfolio, not my wheelhouse. And I'm working at it. I want to do it. I think it's simple. I should get it done, but it's using some part of my brain that has a hard time with that. And I got so burned out, I couldn't even knit something that I've been knitting before. I couldn't even do that. I was royally frustrated. And then I realized, oh, I'm burned out. Okay, let's take a break. So I took a break for a few weeks and allowed myself to take a break because I now know that if that's what I need, I just have to do that. Step away for a little while.
You've learned how to manage it, and do you take medication for it?
No, no. I went to see a psychiatrist a few years ago to ask if that was appropriate for me. And he said, because it was just a couple of years ago, he said, because of your age, it's not. I can tell that you have this situation going on, but at your age, you figured out how to handle things. And I was kind of disappointed, but kind of glad because I didn't really want to take yet another medication to get adjusted to side effects and all that business. So I just figure it out.
So, so how did this work though for you when you were young and so you already said that you were put in the class, the lowest class,
Yeah. Yeah.
and how did your parents deal with it with you?
They didn't. They didn't. There were seven of us kids. I'm the second of seven, the first girl. I did a lot of babysitting. And the only thing they said to me, well, someday you're going to get married.
That'll
I was born in 1947. So those were the days when
that's what we
that was
did.
the only answer.
Right, right. So the teacher didn't really know what was going on with you. Your parents
No,
didn't. So you were alone,
I was. I was.
finding your way.
Right. And getting grades just barely good enough to graduate from high school. I don't even know how that happened. And I actually think it might have happened because my father was a doctor in the area, in the Haverford Bryn Mawr area of Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. And I think they let me pass because my dad had been a doctor. I don't I don't really know. C's and D's, that's going to pass you. So it did me anyway. Thank God for that.
Right. And what about, I mean, we all know what it's like to be a teenager, to be a girl
Oh,
and critical about ourselves in the best of circumstances. What was
right.
your self-esteem like and your confidence level? And
I I think it was mediocre. You know, I've just been writing a bio for my surface pattern design portfolio. And in that, I remembered and wrote down that by the time I was 4 years old, I was designated as the artist of the family. So, as far as that went, my interest in art, and it was my grandfather who was an MD and an artist.
okay.
Um, I was well supported in my art, not in my education. My parents didn't know anything about helping their kids with homework. It's not something they did. So I struggled in a lot of ways, but managed to get through high school.
And then eventually to college. So to be,
Yes,
so it's your art ability and skill that got you into the main college of art.
yes. It's now called Maine College of Art and Design.
Yeah,
They're progressing.
yeah.
And I got there, and so, and that worked well for me because I am such a visual person. I could, I can do that. That's a more natural area for me to be in.
So let's just show to people. So kind of, I want to get back to, what brought you to taking the PT course and the RN course and what was that
Okay.
about? But just, we're talking about very detailed, beautiful drawings. And this is Kat's book about herself, really about
Right.
healing herself. And it's part of the work that you did, I believe, with your therapist about family systems, about getting to understand the different parts of ourselves and query.
Right. Right. That's integrated a little bit in the book.
Right. So it's called Froggy's Mysterious Dream, How I Found Myself in My Drawings. And there's also a workbook to go with it. And again, we'll give people the information. But, really the heroine's journey, responding to those urges to do something, to leave it's all about finding yourself and finding the real you, the true self, which how else would you do it except exploring like you've done?
Right.
So you thought, well, maybe physical therapy is what I'm about.
Well, and I've been drawn to the medical area because of my heritage. My dad and my mom and my grandfather all in the medical field. So it was another natural way for me to go. I did the RN program first because that's what came up available first. Parts of it I loved. I loved working with the patients. Medication, not good for me. Good for me, and that's not a good idea. And then because the PT assistant program was very exclusive, they only accepted 24 people because it's in a little community college program. And because I had graduated from the 2 year RN program, I was easily accepted into that program. That was the right place for me. Love working with the patients. I've always been an active exerciser. I described myself in the past as a gym rat. I'd go to the gym, I'd be there forever and do all this great stuff. And so exercising was in my field and working with patients was in my field. And that was really an excellent career for me to have.
Hmm. But I'm thinking, how did you get through reading all that medical stuff and taking those tests? And that must have been,
Not easy.
wait,
Not
what a
easy.
challenge, I guess. So,
And the program was very stressful, a 2 year program, and the teacher reminded us practically every day. Well, so we would have practical exams where we would show how to do the exercises. We were allowed to pass them If we failed once, that's okay. If we failed the second time, it's okay. If we failed a third time, out of the program, out, out, out. And she told us that all the time. Finally, there were only 12 of us that graduated. We felt like we conquered the world because we got through this thing that was suitable for all of us, but really way more stressful than nursing school was.
Jeez, what an accomplishment. And you
So
did that
push,
for,
push, push, push. And we supported each other.
right,
Some of us studied together and, we worked at it together. And that I think was a really big help.
right. And 15 years, am I right, that you did that work?
16 years. Yeah.
So, so all these different challenges you set for yourself and accomplished and did well. But at what point did you kind of say, hey, I'm an artist. Let me just focus on doing my artwork?
Well, I retired. Well, I'll tell you, I like to say I retired, but the second to last PTA job I had, they let me go.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, oh, okay. So I got another PTA job. They let me go.
oh,
And finally, and they would all say, your job is fine, but goodbye. And I realized I was, again, really burned out because I didn't take vacations. I didn't think I could afford it, this, that, and the other thing. And I didn't know what else to do. So I couldn't switch jobs. And one day somebody said, oh, you're retired. And I said, oh, okay, I'm retired.
it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go.
It
Yeah.
is hard to let go. So I did a program with a friend of mine that I would call her a coach. She was retired at the time, but she was a dear friend. And she had a program called Women's Wisdom, I think she called it, where she had a 14-week program doing all this stuff about my life, starting at the basics and where did you live and what did you do and all this different stuff. And eventually it led me back and said, okay, you are appropriate to go back to your artwork. And I'm like, really? I haven't done it for a billion years. So I started, and that was when that image that you showed, the first one from the book, I have right up here. That's
Oh,
Swimley. So
mm,
I started drawing, and at that point, what happened with me, I would spend up to 10 hours separate times on a single drawing.
mm,
That was what was coming out of me.
mhm,
So that's
mhm.
how I got to the art.
Yeah. So, what a great thing that that happened. And
Yes,
now you're still working on designing using the computer, creating design
right.
for children's clothing
Yep.
and
Children's pajamas right now.
actively employed with that. Well, who knew, huh?
I didn't. Just following the path. And I wouldn't technically say employed because I haven't made any money yet. It has taken me hell of a long time to get here, to finally making my words disappear, so I have to write things down for myself, my digital portfolio.
Mm,
It's taken 4 years for me to get here, taking a lot of classes, learning to do a computer program, which is not in my wheelhouse
right,
either.
right.
But I was like other things in the past that I succeeded at, I stuck to it. I didn't give up. I got help. And now I work with a teacher who's actually a mentor
Mm,
because a few of us get together with her twice a month and she sends other stuff the other 2 weeks of the month. And we discuss things and ask questions and do accountability. What are you going to do now? And all that kind of stuff. So I have not made any money out of it yet. And I don't even know how much money I'm going to make, but I'm so engrossed in this. I'm moving forward and I'll find out when I get there.
wow. So this is what 77 looks like, folks. If,
I'm busy. I'm
I'm
very busy.
but busy doing something you're enjoying and loving and being supported at. And
Right.
so it's very admirable, very
Thank
admirable.
you. Can I show you a couple of my designs?
Yes. And then
Okay.
we're going to talk about how I met you.
Okay, we can do that. So I have three mini collections for my pajamas, and this is one of my mini collections.
Okay, so we're
I don't know.
seeing it. There's a cow in there, and then
No,
no.
they're birds,
Oh,
and it's hard to see this way. Is
right.
this better?
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
ring-necked evening dinky birds.
Beautiful.
That's one of them. This goes with it. This is
Oh, I love the colors. Tree.
this is my rare blue forest firefly.
Mm,
I
beautiful.
use this on my Christmas card this year. And this is goes with it too. This is just stars and hearts.
Yeah, that's harder because it's lighter, but I can
Yeah.
see them. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
the heart.
Yeah. So these
Beautiful.
are all things that hopefully in the future will land on children's pajamas.
Okay. Wonderful. So we'll all be able to say, I know who made those pajama
Right.
designs.
Right.
All right, Kat. So I was in Freeport, Maine. I had some time to kill. I thought, I'm going to go to that bookstore over there and just look around while I'm waiting. So I go to the bookstore in Freeport, and there's all kinds of stuff in there. But for some reason, I end up looking at a bulletin board with a lot of business cards on it. And there's a business card for you talking about animal communication. And at the same time, well, maybe for the past prior to that visit to the bookstore, 5 months, my beloved 12-year-old German Shepherd was failing, Maximus. And I was in a quandary about, do we put him down? Now, of course, my husband didn't want that to happen. I felt that Max was ready. We were just embroiled, and we would have the conversation about should we, shouldn't we, and not fight about it, but disagree about it. And I thought, seeing that on the bulletin board, well, and I had used an animal psychic, animal communicator before, and it had helped us. Thought, why not? So I called you and we set up a time to talk about it. And I sent you, as you requested, a picture of Max. And did I have to do anything else
Just a few
preliminary?
questions, three or four questions,
And
without telling me anything about what's
right,
going on, because that
right.
can skew my reception.
And I didn't at all. And what I got was, well, I got peace from it, but it was that he is okay with whatever you two decide. He loves you. He knows that you love him. He is okay and he's not in pain. And that was another thing. And he didn't appear to be in pain, but you know how dogs are.
Yeah, they can protect themselves,
Right.
cats too, all
So
animals.
I was able to let the whole thing go and just say, we'll know when it's time. And we did. And we were able to plan it with our vet, and it was a beautiful thing.
I'm
So
so glad.
when we talked, well, the very first time I was kind of interviewing you about doing this, you told me the story about how you got into animal communication and the pig story. And I wonder if you could tell our listeners.
I have two pigs and a fish if you'd like them all.
Maybe right now we only have time for, well, tell us the ones that are
I'll
most
I'll do the
okay.
one cutie pie. So I took my training 3 winters ago, I think it was, with Alex Anderson. Um, my sister told me about her, knowing that animal communication would be something in my wheelhouse. And as soon as she sent it to me, I read up on it and I thought, yes, this is for me. So I can tell you about this adorable little guy. because he was a class project. Things, when I talk to an animal that belongs to an individual, I don't share any of that information unless I get permission to do that. So this little guy was 3 or 4 days old. Maybe you can see person's fingers around him. So he was just a handhold size.
Yeah.
So when I talked to him, it was just the sweetest thing. It was like he was telling me baby things. He said, "We love to eat." Because we had a picture of the whole 7 of them nursing. And he said, "I love to pile up with my brothers and sisters." Then he said, um, when I was born, I rolled across the floor and they were surprised. And this was one of the first animals I had talked to. I was still figuring out, is he really talking to me? Because I hear my own voice. Thought, this couldn't be the case. That just sounds crazy. Well, a couple days later, I got confirmation that this did happen. The people who owned the barn went in the day after the piglets were born, and he was way over by the cow, wherever that was, which I'm sure wasn't very close to a mama having babies.
Right.
And they were surprised, and
Yeah.
he even got that. So,
But this
my
is
God.
the more I think about this story, and I've thought about it since I first heard it. I mean, that is remarkable that he would be able to communicate that because
Yes.
what piglet does that? They don't.
I,
No
I know.
animal rolls
I
across
don't
the,
understand it. I just know I can do it because I found out in my training I'm clairvoyant.
right.
I didn't know that's what that was because as I've told you before, I have visions occasionally. I never know when they're going to pop up. That means I'm clairvoyant and I connect naturally with the spirit world in some way. And that connects me with animal communication.
So just as a little experiment before we end,
Yes.
and I ask you
Yes.
my final question that I want to ask you. Have you ever tried, like, I mean, would you be able to have a vision right now and talk to us about it?
I don't know how to create a vision. I tried to create being awake in a dream one time and it did not go well.
Mhm.
So I don't push it.
It would just
And
come to you. It would come to you if it
it
was
would come to me. And what they do is they bring me like training for life. They show me things that are helpful for me. And I'm not having one now. If I have one a little later, I'll text you and let you
let me
know.
know. But you are someone I want to just encourage people that can help with particularly is what we're talking about with animals and what they're going through. And actually, I'm going to be contacting you again, Kat, about my
Great,
own cat,
great.
who's, I think, missing Maximus. So
Oh,
we'll talk about that. But
okay,
I,
wonderful.
yeah, so I'm so appreciative of you spending some time and sharing your rich, full life, which is still high-powered going forward.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
With a lot of rest time in between.
Good. But I hope you've learned that lesson. You need to take
I have.
your poor mind. But
Yeah, yeah.
before I let you go, all this stuff we've talked about, you've shared some of your lessons and your stories, of course. What would you most want the people listening to remember from this conversation?
A big piece, well, two.
Oh,
A
okay.
big piece is if you have an animal, make sure it has a GPS attachment on its collar. The hardest time I've had and the most emotionally painful is people who say, "Well, I had one, but he didn't have it on when he ran away, and we never found the dog." Or sometimes we were lucky and found the dog, but keep the GPS on the animal. If you don't have one, get one, experiment with it. It can be really interesting because you can get the kind that will show you where the animal is, like my friend's cat wandering all over the neighborhood. She could see where he'd been. And the second thing is don't give up. It can be really hard, really frustrating. Just take a break and get back to it. talk to your friends who are supportive of you. And I don't talk to my people I know who are not supportive in this way. I talk to the people I know who love what I do, who help me, encourage me, and help to keep me going that way. Those two things.
Wow. Well, those are both very valuable. And I just, you know, your whole story, what if you had just given up when you were in high school and thought, okay, well,
Right.
I guess
Just
they,
be married and just have a family. That's
right,
it. Yeah, it didn't work for me.
look at you. Well, thank you again. The website that we want people to go to is artistillustratorkgtaylor.com. And you're on Instagram as Kat Taylor Creations. And again,
Yes.
I'll put this in the show notes. I'll put the title of your book.
It's Kat G. Taylor Creations for
Yeah,
Instagram.
okay, Kat G. Taylor Creations. Froggy's Mysterious Dream, How I Found Myself in Drawings. And I'm just in awe of what you've done.
It's just day by day for me, one day
So,
at a time, and off you go.
so pleased to have met you, to have Maximus connect us.
He was such a sweetheart,
Ah,
really sweet to work with.
well, thank you, everyone listening. Thank you, Kat.
Thank
Join
you,
us
Susanna.
for the next podcast, which will come out next month, and have a wonderful heroine's journey going forward. Bye.
Hulu.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the podcast for real life heroines. Your time and presence mean the world to us. If you're hungry for more inspiration and ready to craft your own heroine story, connect with Susanna outside of the show. Visit susannalillard.com to discover her courses and programs designed to empower you on your journey. Until next time, may your days be filled with the courage and strength of a true heroine. Stay inspired.